Charitable gifting is not just an art and a passion that comes from within. In order to do it well, you really have to understand the United States tax code. You have to understand your portfolio. Yes, you have to have charitable intent, but let's be smart about the money. Go work with Financial Enhancement Group. Call 800-928-4001 or go to yourlifeafterwork.com. Get signed up for a next steps meeting. We will cover the better giver. It's not about how to give more. It's how to give more efficiently for your tax return. You get more. The charity gets more. The better giver. Call the Financial Enhancement Group, 800-928-4001 or go to yourlifeafterwork.com. Welcome to Your Retirement Playbook. I'm your host, Joe Clark. We are talking about what to do now in this crazy and volatile world. We're going to go into your final stretch using, that means actually decumulating or spending and gifting money out of your accounts. Now, you have probably always been charitable. Rarely do people wake up in their retired years and suddenly become charitable when they weren't before. If you are, God bless, that's a great thing. But usually this is something that goes on as you age and retire, and it becomes one of those questions that people get challenged with all the time. How much do you give at retirement? What about the market and the unknowns? How do I know I won't run out of money? There are lots of things to consider inside of charitable gifting. We're going to try to walk you through them right now. I will tell you, you can go to yourlifeafterwork.com, get signed up for a next steps meeting, and we'll go over the Better Giver program with you, where it's not our job to help you give more. It's just to give better, more efficiently, if you will, from a tax standpoint in terms of where we are. And one of the rules of charitable gifting, and this is one of the conundrums, if you will, is that people do tend to give out of income, not out of assets. So in the days of pensions and everything else, if you were used to giving 10% of your retirement or 10% of your income, and you retired and your income stayed at a certain level, or even if it was reduced, it was very natural to give 10% of that to the charity of your choice. One of the challenges that happens as people age now is the majority of their money is inside of 401ks or 403bs or what we call defined contribution plans. And people just aren't as apt to pull money out. They're not spending it because if they pull it out, they have to pay taxes on it. Nobody likes the IRS, right? Nobody wants to pay the taxes. And so people that were making $200,000 a year, that regularly gave $20,000 a year to their church, are suddenly only living on Social Security and maybe a small amount of money, maybe $50,000 a year. It happens many, many times. And now they're giving $5,000 a year to the church. They're wondering why their tax rate's not being more improved, and that's because there's an inefficiency in giving tax when you're not able to itemize from a tax standpoint. And secondly, the charity's wondering what they did wrong, and the answer is people give out of income, not out of assets. So you've got to educate yourself along the way, or the people that you work with that you're counting on for charitable contributions. So what do I do in an up market if I'm going to give money? Well, one of our concepts that we use is one that's called the double stack. And remember, less than 10% of us these days are able to itemize. If you do not itemize, you do not get a charitable tax deduction, period, right? You have to itemize to be able to do it. So 90% of us are going to take the standard deduction. We don't get any charitable deduction at all. Doesn't mean you shouldn't give, you just don't get a deduction for it. One of the things that we teach our people to do at the Financial Enhancement Group is to do a double stack, where we make 2 years worth of charitable contributions this year and none the next year. Yes, that works out just fine and may allow you to actually take advantage of itemized deductions, and then next year take the standard deduction. You're able to get, in some cases, a savings of $3,000 to $5,000 off of your taxes simply by doing it in the right period of time, understanding the way the tax rate works. So in upward markets, that's one of the strategies we are able to use. The second one is understanding the gifting of appreciated stock. When you gift appreciated stocks, you get a deduction for the fair market value, and you never have to pay taxes on the capital gain. Again, only if you itemize. That's a beautiful thing. If it's coming out of an IRA, then you want to look if you're over 70 and a half years old, not 72. Remember, that's the age for required minimum distributions. But if you're over 70 and a half, you want to look for a QCD, or qualified charitable distribution. Again, those are up markets. A down market, when you're in a period of deterioration or a market pullback where we are right now here in 2022, You want to look at it as a period of when I make a gift to my charity, um, I certainly never want to give anything that's at a loss, because if it's at a loss, I want to sell it, claim the capital loss on my own tax return. You may say, well, I don't have any capital gains to use. The IRS says you can still use a $3,000 capital loss every year, even if you have no capital gains. So if you're in the 25% tax bracket, that's like putting 750 tax dollars in your billfold. This makes all the sense in the world to do it. It's one of the reasons we use harvest tax loss strategies inside of the Financial Enhancement Group as well. Remember, you never want to give depreciated assets away to a charity. When you look at your family, your kids, people like that, who do you want to make gifts to? Well, when I make a gift, I have two daughters. When I make a gift to them and I'm dead, I'm gone, they get, under the current tax code, what's called a step-up in basis. So let's say I bought a stock at $10 a share. The stock is now worth $100 a share, and I die, and they inherit the stock. They're going to get a step-up in basis, meaning their tax basis is now $100 a share, right? So they can sell it, and they have no capital gains tax at all. It's free to them because I gave it to them at my demise. On the other hand, if I gave it to them while I was alive, their basis is my basis. So if I bought it at $10 a share and I gifted it to them for Christmas this year, then their basis is no longer $100. Their basis is now $10. Now, if they go and sell it, they're going to have to pay the taxes on the $90,000 in capital gains. Well, here's the interesting thing, parents. Many of us have tax brackets that are higher than our kids. I'm in that case. And so in my case, gifting them appreciated stock, selling it in their account, puts it taxable on their return, not on mine. And even though they had to pay taxes, it was still better off than me actually giving them cash. Now, these are some complex tax planning strategies. I'm not hiding anything from you, but I would tell you to work with your professional. Make sure you have somebody who is well-versed in tax planning and works well with your CPA. We believe in collaboration, not just cooperation. Right? Cooperation is when we call somebody and say, do this, and they do it. Collaboration is, what do you think about this? And we get the input back from your CPA or your attorney that we're working with to be able to come with stuff. So with charities, you always want to give appreciated stock. With kids, it depends on their tax bracket. Neither case do you want to give depreciated assets. You always want to put that on the highest tax bracket, the highest return. Even if you gift it to your kids at a capital loss, they can't use the capital loss. So don't be doing that at all. Here's one of the big ones that I think really gets people into trouble, and that's understanding what happens inside of a will, inside of a trust, and a tax deferred plan. So inside of an IRA or a 401k, first of all of your assets that you have are includable in your gross estate. Under the current tax code, most of us don't have an estate tax problem. We have over $23 million in a married couple as a estate right now that they have that's free and clear. And there aren't a lot of $20 million estates that are running around. There are some. But for most of us, there's not an estate tax problem that is out there. So you don't have to worry about this right now. But you've got money in an IRA. Let's say we've got $1 million in an IRA, $1 million house and lake house combined, and $1 million in a brokerage account that you've saved and accumulated money. So you've got a $3 million estate. You've done well for yourselves. There, you have no estate tax implication. $3 million versus $23 million. No contest there, right? And you want to leave behind 10% to your charity. Well, it is very, very common for an attorney to tell you that you can create a trust and put your house and your lake house inside of the trust. That makes all the sense in the world, by the way. That keeps you out of probate, especially if the properties are in multiple states. I think it makes sense. Not an attorney. Don't play one on TV or radio. But that's the way, in my opinion, that it should be done as a non-attorney. Secondly, people will ask you how much money you want to give to charity. In many cases, in our practice, people say, well, 5% or 10%, sometimes even more, I want to leave behind the charity. Well, here's where the rub becomes. Money that's inside of your house or your brokerage account or your lake place your kids, your heirs, get a step up in basis on, meaning they're paying zero in tax. On the other hand, money that's inside of the IRA or the 401k, when you're gone, whoever inherits that will pay taxes unless they are a charity. So ideally, when you pass away, the money that you want to go to a charitable entity comes from the IRA or the 401k, not from money that you've already paid taxes on, where your heirs get a step up in basis so that they have literally zero taxation that's on there. Yet many times I see people who will come in and have the trust say, or the will say, I want to leave X amount of dollars to the church, or I want to leave X amount of dollars to this university. I would tell you always use a percentage, never use an amount. And if you have that in your trust, don't panic, but write a letter to the successor trustee that says, inside of the trust, says, hey, by the way, we've changed the beneficiary designation on our IRA. If this gift has been given out of the IRA to the charity, then do not give any money out of the trust. Just be very, very clear about what's going on. Ideally, you have it updated and changed in the trust, but that documentation going along with it should be enough to be able to suffice in case anybody has any questions. So let's think about this again. We've got a stock. We paid $10 for it. It's now worth $100, right? If we're going to give it to charity and we're able to itemize, we get a tax gift of $100 on our tax return. We do not ever have to pay the taxes on the $90. If we give it to our kids while we're alive, the kids' tax basis is $10. If they were to sell it, they have to pay a capital gains tax of $90 per share. That could be okay if they're in a lower bracket. If you're in the 12% bracket or lower, currently there is no capital gains taxation. And then the third option is the stock we paid $100 and it's now worth $10. You never want to give that to a charity. Anytime there's a loss from what you paid, you actually want to sell it, recognize the capital loss so that you have it on your return, and then make the gift of the cash if that is what you're going to do. Remember, none of that matters inside of an IRA or a 401k. That is just after-tax money. This is a great period of time, in my opinion, to make contributions to your retirement account, to your 401k account, but not to accelerate charitable gifting. That doesn't mean you don't give. I just wouldn't accelerate it this year unless there's definite tax purposes. It's a year to accelerate your contributions to your retirement accounts. Let the market do its work.